Hello, you're listening to Count Richard Von Coudenhove kalergi. Today is Friday, the 7th of December, and here's a couple of comments since my last video. Well, it's been an interesting week, both domestically and abroad. As we edge ever closer to the signing of the Global Compact next week, Denmark and Japan have now joined the long list of countries refusing to sign, a list that will probably hit over 20 countries next Monday. In France, after 3 weeks of rioting, President Macron, whose popularity has dropped from an approval rating of 66 when he was elected down to 18% this week, has decided to respond to the rise in diesel prices by shelving it for a couple of months. It just goes to show what happens when you elect a globalist, image-orientated leader over a nationalist. Le Pen, who was hit out against France signing the Global Compact, describes it as an act of betrayal, saying that immigration is organised replacement of our population, and this threatens our very survival. We won't have the means to integrate those that are already here, and the result is endless cultural conflict. Other European issues: in Germany, the Interior Ministry has launched a controversial campaign that is proposing to pay 1 year's rent to those migrants who voluntarily return to their country of origin. Returnees would receive housing assistance in the form of rent, construction or renovation work, with it capped at €3,000 per family or €1,000 for a single person. Also in Germany, the number of gun licence applications has increased by 130% since 2014. Growing to 600,000 this year. This coincided with Merkel's decision to invite 1.5 million people from Africa and the Middle East since 2015. The Italian government has dramatically reduced the number of migrants landing by 96% in the last 2 years, with 23,000 have landed since the 1st of January this year. In Finland, police in Oulu are investigating serious sexual assault on a 10-year-old girl, arresting 7 foreign men suspected of serious child molestation and rape, which has been ongoing for months. Recently in Western Finland, 5 Afghan men gang raped a 19-year-old girl who then afterwards tried to take her own life. Also back in France, a court in the migrant heavily populated area of Paris called Saint-Denis has jailed a Sri Lankan man for 2 years for attacking his wife, punching her in the face, raping her and then pouring super glue over her genitals. He's also been ordered not to make contact with his wife. Saint-Denis is an area of Paris that has up to 300,000 illegals living there, some of them intense, throughout its streets. Last year, due to high levels of street harassment, a petition signed by thousands of women was organised, and yet 1 year later it seems to be worse, with residents afraid to go out on the streets after dark. In Poland, David Attenborough claims that the collapse of civilization is imminent without global action on climate change at the opening ceremony in the UN Climate Conference last Monday, where delegates from 200 countries will attend for 2 weeks discussing climate issues. As much as I like Mr. Attenborough, with Life in the Freezer being one of my favourite series on DVD and gave me an interest in the polar regions, he is a TV personality of iconic status and not a climate expert, and he should stick to saving penguins. How would he explain the mini ice age in the Middle Ages before the Industrial Revolution? What about the Thames freezing over in the 18th century and 19th century? And what about the Vostok ice core samples, which date back 400,000 years in Antarctica and can prove that the temperature has regularly been higher than it is now, with higher levels of CO2 long before man arrived on this planet. There is also over 300 million cubic miles of water in the ocean, with enormous capacity for absorption. I believe that the UN is guilty of gross hypocrisy talking about climate change, considering that it is pushing a document in Marrakesh next week that will legalise the movement, and according to UN figures, of up to 250 million migrants from the third world to the Western world. So what about the carbon footprint caused by this mass movement of people? And upon arrival in host countries, such as Ireland, will have a much bigger carbon footprint as consumer than in their own country of origin, such as sub-Saharan Africa. What about the carbon footprint caused by the delegates that decide to arrive by private jet? At the last conference in Paris, over 2,000 extra movements of aircraft took place, and Arnold Schwarzenegger, who said that he wanted to turbidate climate change by treating himself to a Bentley worth $250,000. Tosser of the week still goes to Bono, I'm afraid, who had a giant blue screen with yellow stars behind it saying, "Blessed is the dark blue above Europe, which we share, and may the yellow stars never fall upon his head." On our heads, I beg your pardon. Now to more domestic issues. The Grand Hotel in Wicklow has released a statement saying that the non-bedroom element of the hotel remains open for bookings, but all events have now been cancelled by the public, and the bar has been virtually empty for the last month to the owner's disappointment. Well, the decision to go against the community and open a hotel as a direct provision centre, why are you surprised that the community are avoiding you? Gran Torino did an excellent report from the hotel in Rosslare, where the owners had a meeting involving the community voicing their disapproval of being turned into a temporary accommodation for asylum seekers and economic migrants. Thankfully, for the sake of the community, the two owners released a statement 2 days later saying that they had changed their minds and would now concentrate on building up the business locally, and asked the community to support them in their efforts and give them their business, which I hope they will. The topic of the Global Compact was discussed on the Tonight Show with Matt Cooper, and the only two people that talked any sense on the programme were Niall Boylan and Kevin Sharkey, both of whom thought it was actually a bad idea. With the rise of the alternative media Demo Doherty and a live stream on Wednesday night on the corruption within the UN, which Gran Torino later talked about in Rosslare. As I was watching the repeat of Rosslare, I didn't notice that Niall Boylan was actually talking about the Global Compact. And of all the nights that I chose not to tune in, that he decided to discuss this topic. And on another note, I attended the march yesterday outside the Leinster House, and it was very nice to meet some fellow commentators here on YouTube. Especially Emmanuel, you're such a gent, and I very much enjoyed my conversation with you. And here's the next one, and Gran Torino did an excellent report of that as well. And the other thing I noticed was that there was quite a few tricolours flown on this side of the group, but on the other side, the protesters who were shouting Nazi scum off our streets were actually waving communist flags. So it just goes to show where their allegiance actually lies. Well, they're just a couple of thoughts which are my own. I noticed I have a couple of new subscribers this week, so thanks for subscribing and thanks for listening. Bye bye.